Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind, the brand new podcast here on the MLR network. My name is Kyle. Glad to be with you all today as we discuss one of the biggest games each week in the history of the MLR and how it has affected the way we play fake baseball today. Joining me today are two veterans of the game, Mr. Milo Grams and Mr. Jay Bird. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I have to shit, but I can deal.
Great.
I am wonderful today. I actually just set up my whole desktop situation downstairs. So I'm like sitting and enjoying my laptop for the first time in months.
Nice. Glad to hear it. So yeah, just to fill you guys in on kind of the gist of what we are doing here with this podcast. We are going to go every week and take a look at one game in the history of MLR. We're going to kind of go reverse chronologically. We are going to step back into season one after this game here and kind of go chronologically from there. But I kind of wanted to start just on the season one Paper Cup. This is the first real big game MLR ever had that everybody had their eyes on across the league. And it culminated, of course, in the first champion we ever had. So, Jay, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Phillies side of things, since they're involved in this game, and tell us how the Phillies came to be here in the first ever Paper Cup.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of being a GM is starting off on the right foot because I mean, if you don't draft well, you kind of get fucked. So, of course, I drafted Kyle Mack first overall, and Kyle Mack was pretty great. I enjoyed him until he ghosted us, but that's a different story. Yeah, we had I drafted Cy Had. Everyone knows Cy Had. Rest in peace. F. He's not actually dead. We had Ross Fire.
We don't know.
Man, I hope not. I hope not. We had Ross Fire. Oh yeah, that because he was saving orphans. That's the official story. But Ross Fire, he was drafted. I remember him fondly. He was a very good hitter. He was our best offensive player, and he wasn't too active, but he was active enough, especially during season one. Conrad Love, actually, fun thing about Conrad Love, if we're just going to be talking about, I'm basically like going down the lineup for this game and sort of like trying to piece together some names. Conrad Love, funny thing about him, I didn't draft him. What happened was before the first draft began, we had a trade. I had a trade with the Mets, and the Mets, it was like a pick trade, and it was like a player to be named later for like one of their first like 6 picks or something to that effect. So like regardless, what I would get was one of their first 6 picks, and so like they drafted Conrad Love for I think their 3rd pick, and then like into the draft they decided that they wanted to trade Conrad Love to Toronto. And I was like, well, hold on a second. I have a claim to one of your first 6 picks. So if I want to pick Conrad Love, then we have a problem because that means that that's my player. So we had like immediately from the first get-go, we had a sort of dramatic thing where it was like, you agreed to this trade, but I want to be able to, this is technically my trader, my player. You're kind of like pinning my arm here. And it was like a back and forth like that. And it ended up just me being like, all right, just give me Conrad Love and call it a day. So that's how I got Conrad. But yeah, those were like the key players from my draft. And then brought on Oliver Yu and Casey Batts, who are 2 players who are still on that Phillies team today. And overall, we just went through like a few other players, Cambodia, who took me like 2 sessions to realize that was a joke on Cambodia. I was like, whoa, okay. And Miguel Snow he was involved in a 6-team trade. He was kind of like a name tacked on to the end of it. And the end, he's still on there, and he ends up being one of my good friends that I still am very friendly with today. But that's how sort of the roster came together. And so first session, don't know what to expect. I'm like, let's please not let this be like a windless, really bad team. And we end up going down to the Twins, who were considered the draft winners at the time, but we that got broken up. We took the lead off of a a home run by Cy Had himself, the pitcher. And so it became sort of a quick meme that Cy Had was like an offensive pitcher because he ended up like giving himself his own lead. And he ended up winning that game. So we got the first game. Our second game was against the Kansas City Royals. We lost that, I remember, because I think we took the lead, but then we lost it, and it was really like, damn. I can't really like specifically remember the games after that. I remember the Nationals and Phillies, who were a huge rivalry in the first season and the first half of the second season. And we won that game. I'm pretty sure it went into over. I think that one went to overtime.
Phillies win. Phillies won.
That was
2-0.
extras. No, that was extras. It was 10 to 3, but it was the top of the seventh that
we scored 7.
3 gave up 7.
Yeah. Shit.
Yep.
So yeah, you were there. Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
I remember that because I had a chance to walk it off in the bottom of the 6th, and I had like a 400 difference, and then we just got blown out in the 7th. And I was
because I remember Artenis, who was Admiral Jones at the time, he hit a double, which was really crazy because he never hit anything. He was absolutely shit at hitting. And so it was like, all right, well, perfect. The guy who can't hit got on base. We're fucked here. But we ended up getting out of it and blowing them out, which put us kind of as the unanimous top team at the time. And I think we also blew out the Orioles, I think by even more. We really blew out the Orioles.
Yeah, 9-4. Bad.
Yeah, this writer Riley Turr, I don't know who operates that account, but he wrote a piece about like how the first Philadelphia Phillies team were like pretty great when it came to hitting, like blowing out their opponents in the first season. But yeah, as far as the season goes, I think that's a pretty good synopsis of the first Phillies. Do we want to immediately talk about the tiebreaker, or do you just want to?
Well, I'll get into that with the A's. So yeah, Milo, how about you talk about the A's a little bit and maybe what led them there, or whatever you remember as you were.
Well, I remember the A's being strong because they had a couple big players on their team that were just like really well known. Caleb Van Vactor, who he struggled a lot in season 2 at the beginning of it. He was dominant. Like if you look at the stat leaderboards, shout out, I was up there a lot. Van Vactor and I were like this same spot. Like he was top in AL. He was second in hits. He was first in batting average. He was first in on base percentage, first in slugging percentage for American. He just destroyed the American League. And what was really odd is like Riley's article, I think he put, I don't know. I remember him saying like the Oakland offense, they're almost as bad as Toronto's last year. Big shout out. But they were awful. And Van Vactor just destroyed everyone. Like I'm just looking at the roster sheet to remember these. He has a 1,000 slugging. No one else was above 600. Like he carried this team on offense. And their pitching was actually all Sal Shark. Like Sal Shark was a really, really good pitcher, and like most of their offense that was known was due to Caleb Van Vactor pretty much hitting home runs, and getting on base all the time, and other people just kind of getting in the way, hoping that Van Vactor would hit them in. But one thing that we should mention is that though the Phillies did play Kansas City started the year. Well, Oakland started the year in Kansas City, so these teams met already in this season in session 2. They gave the Phillies their only loss in the first 5 games. And another weird thing, Kansas City started out, or Oakland started out 2-1 in Kansas City, and then moved on to Oakland and finished the season 2-2. They never gave up more than 4 runs in a game, but they also struggled pretty heavily on offense.
Never scored more than 4 runs in a game.
Oh yeah, there you go. So they kept it really close all the time. So yeah,
I could talk a little bit about the Athletics when it comes to the fact that like when we talk about teams that are like controversial, I would say that they're the first ever controversial team.
Definitely.
Because they were known to be like very isolationist. they didn't really talk on Maine a lot, but they were known to be definitely active in the game itself, and they were very vindictive towards the administration, and they had a lot of criticisms regarding that. So they were known, I guess, like as like the inactive team, as a joke, like, oh man, the Athletics, we never see the Athletics, which is a sort of thing that happens a lot today too with other different teams that are inactive.
For sure. So yeah, yeah, definitely some controversy in Oakland. Pretty much all the way up until those guys left for the MLN. We'll get into that a little bit later as we talk about the specific guys on this A's team. Um, but yeah, Milo, what do you think the lasting legacy is from this A's team, even looking back with Judah and Gymnast and all the cast of characters that are involved here? Do you think it maybe left a stain on the league, or is it kind of a bright spot?
No, well, there is sort of when people mention the season one A's, right? For me, because of me being the mirror of it, the first thing I think of when I see those A's is I see Caleb Van Vactor, because he was an offensive powerhouse that did not exist anywhere else in the American League. Like it just wasn't there. And Van Vactor, just like every time he went to the plate, you expected a double. Like he was that good of a hitter. Um, but like lasting legacy, unfortunately for a lot of people from these days, is a lot of rebellion, a lot of kind of fight the power from this organization, which I think as we lead up to this game leads so much more into why the paper cup was important this season. And also, in addition to having these two teams in the paper cup, both of these teams had to win tiebreakers to make it to the paper cup, which I think I should throw it over to Jay to talk about a little bit.
All right, is that fine, Corbett? Is that on your
Yeah, go
schedule?
for it, Jay. Talk about it.
All right, so there's a lot of jokes about me rigging the paper cup. I would like to say that the whole origin of why the Phillies got in to begin with was the fact that Admiral Jones had I forget what the system on tiebreakers were, but it wasn't entirely like he wasn't entirely accurate with the statistic at which he was measuring it, and it was very close together. And honestly, I wish I'd remembered what the exact statistic was, but it wasn't something that should be used for tiebreakers. And so I was very pissed off about that. And we had a whole falling out about it, where I was like, we should really be like doing this a little bit more properly. But he had declared that the Nationals were going to be the representatives for the National League, and I was like, well, okay, then fine, fuck it. And I sort of just like stormed off as well as you can online, I guess. I just was like, all right, fuck it, I'll put it behind me, whatever. Because to be honest, I did like the idea of kind of like continuing on in search of that first championship. My ideal first championship was not to win a 7-game shortened season, which I would take, but I wasn't like, fuck. So like secretly I was like okay with it. I was like, all right, then fine, whatever. The Nationals can get it and we'll stay hungry for the next season. But then Admiral Jones contacted me and he was like, let's just settle this with like a coin flip. And I was like, okay. So he took me into a private room with me and Mick, who was the Washington general manager. And we had a Pi as a neutral arbiter, because at the time Pi did not play for the Phillies yet, so he was a neutral arbiter at the time. So basically, we had a coin flip. Actually, no, it was a miniature home run derby, I think. And there's like it kind of acted as a coin flip with how the rules were at the time, because with the classic home run derbies. But I ended up winning that, and I remember I ended up winning it with the 738 number, which is like the classic Phillies meme number, because like a long time ago, session 1, before our first ever game, we had a batting room in our Discord, and Kyle Mack ended like it had like a dice roll thing, and Kyle Mack guessed the number from the dice roll almost exactly. I think it was actually 736, but for some reason we ended up making it 738 as our meme number. But I used that meme number. It got us into the championship. It was a sort of tiebreaker behind closed doors thing that was instituted by the Nationals, not the Phillies. So it was entirely out of my hands. I was going to kind of roll over and let the Nationals be the representatives of the National League, but that's how it ended up.
Yeah, and so another thing that's weird here too is that like it was a tiebreaker between the Nationals and Phillies, but there were 4 NL teams that won 5 games. The Pirates and the Braves also went for 5-2. And I think it's interesting bringing that into there because the tiebreaker had to be, instead of head to head, which the Phillies won head to head, it had to be, it became like run differential or whatever, which run differential I think the Phillies won too. And Phillies and Nats, I think, were tied above all the other teams, above Phillies and Braves.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the big conflict there, because I know like, so what happened was that like the Phillies won head to head with the Nationals, but because like head to head knocked out the Braves and the Pirates, who are the other 2 teams, then like Admiral Jones was going to go to the next tiebreaker thing, but I figured that I wanted to go back to head to determine who won. It's kind of hard to explain, but like I figured that because we won head to head, the original tiebreaker formula, that we should have gone on with the tiebreaker and won and gone to the National League title to go to the Paper Cup. So that was my sort of thing, and he wanted to go on to the next decider of tiebreakers, which I think like I think run differential we were the exact same, so we had to go on to the one after that. It was,
and the thing
fucking
from
crazy.
My perspective, the craziest thing was that we did run differential, and you guys had a 7 run differential from our game. That was in extras, so really that was one that was unearned, but it was still part of overall run differential. So it was just a wild tiebreaker. When I went through it, like both teams looked the same, except the Phillies had beat us head to head, and they didn't lose to either of the other NL teams.
All right, so yeah, I think it's time to go ahead and get into the lineups. Anything more I think we need to add from, or y'all think we need to add from kind of before the game?
I mean, if I think of something, I guess I'll bring it up later.
I'll mention the tiebreaker also in the AL.
Oh, forgot we didn't even talk about that. That's almost more controversial, I feel like.
Not as quite.
Oh, okay.
Not as quite. That's not a sentence, but whatever. Not quite as much. Because that was only 2 teams that were 4-3, but the A's had played the Tigers early on in the season. So, or no, I think it was at the end of the season.
Yeah, Tigers collapsed,
and Tigers went 3-1, I think, and then lost.
They went 3-0, I think, and then they lost like 2 in a row, and then salvaged 1 or whatever. I forget entirely what it was.
And then I think if I look here, there was one game that they played. They faced off, and the Royals or A's, whoever they were at the time, they won. And so that gave them the tiebreaker straight up, which made sense.
Yeah, I don't remember anybody arguing about that or like throwing a fit over that. I think it was just that was what it was.
Like truly, the Paper Cup was when the Phillies played the Nats and decided that that would set the tiebreaker from that point.
I loved that rivalry so much. I wish it still existed.
That was a great Paper Cup because that was a great setup for it because that was the 2-5-2 teams.
And when we talk about season 2 stuff, I want to talk about the rematch, which is equally as fucking crazy. Those 2 games are so crazy.
All right. So, yeah, let's go ahead and quickly get into these lineups here. I'm just going to kind of go down. We'll get into the individual players as we kind of get into the play-by-play of the game. But we'll go ahead and talk about the bench players, too, at the end. We'll start with the A's lineup. Leading off, playing shortstop for them was Graham Autry. Catching for the A's, batting second, was Art Ziz. Or Ziz? Do y'all know how to pronounce it?
It's really funny how like a lot of these old names were entirely because me and Admiral Jones kind of took usernames and tried to make names out of it. Like Grant 03 is because or Graham 03. Yeah, because that's his username 03. So
all right. So Art Z batting second. Caleb Van Vactor, as already discussed, is hitting third, playing first base. Batting fourth, Blue Moon Bartholomew in left field. Batting fifth, Brian Southwell, making his MLR debut in the Season 1 Paper Cup, batting fifth. We're going to talk a lot about him this game. Don't you worry. Max Wasson, MLR veteran, bats sixth, DHing. Kid Notcher in the seventh spot, playing second base. Bodie McBoatface, playing center field, batting eighth. And Bobson Dugnut, the fighting baseball superstar, batting ninth, playing third base. And on the mound, and this one is lefty Sal Shark, entering with a 4-3 record on the mound for the A's. And yeah, I'll go ahead and read off the bench. We'll get into the lineup a little bit later, but some notable bench players we should probably talk about on this A's team. It's funny because I don't think any guys in Season 1, except for one of them, actually, didn't play a game for the A's at all. Three of the four bench players that didn't play a game, I believe would never actually play a game for the A's. They just kind of sat on the roster all the way up until they were cut in Season 2, Session 12 when JP Panic took over. Of course, the notable exception to that is Jay Schwizzle, who would have a little bit of an interesting Season 2, but we'll probably get to that when we get into, I believe, a couple episodes down the line, the A's Ranger stuff. Nonetheless, Justin Verga, who actually was a former Philly, I Am Robert, and Sonny Shime never actually touched the field for the A's, from what I understand. And also on the A's bench is pitcher Grey Goose McGillicuddy, otherwise known as Judah, who I believe we've already discussed a little bit. Do you guys want to touch anything more on Judah? Or
Judah, he was very contentious. He was very much like a mock government person at a time where like we didn't want to have that bureaucracy. So basically he was contentious with me from the start. I don't want to talk about him too much from my point of view because of course I'm a little bit biased, but yeah, we had a lot of falling out. He ended up being voted. I guess I can say this from the get-go. He ended up being voted out by the GMs after it was discovered that he was trying to set up like a I won't say coup attempt, but like I guess it would be. It was like a proposal. It was like fashioned as a committee proposal, but it was something basically like trying to completely change the structure of the league.
So, of course, Rick Gymnast was the GM for this game, played for about 5 games throughout Season 1, and then pretty much moved to full-time GM-ship from then on until he left the league Season 2, Session 12, or Session 11, rather. But Milo, there's been rumors throughout MLR lore that Gymnast never actually was the man in charge of this team. There were some rumors Season 2 that pretty much dating back to when Judah was removed from his post, Judah was still in charge of the team, just from undercover, as Gymnast was kind of just a face for the team, which is unfortunate for Gymnast, considering the fact that the GM can never play on the field in a game at the time. We hadn't allowed for PHGMs yet, but Milo, what are your thoughts on these rumors? Do you think Judah was actually in charge of this team, even during this Paper Cup?
So I think what's interesting, I could see him as, having influenced a lot of what Gymnast did is his actions, because Gymnast played under Judah when Judah was GM.
Yes.
So even if Gymnast was, hey, this is entirely me, I don't think it's best for Oakland to, hey, this is our new GM. He's going to do everything new. Even if it was Gymnast's ideas and stuff, a lot of it still was influenced by Judah because Judah had GM almost the whole year. And you can't just throw a new GM into that playoff game. So I think it's reasonable, even if I don't think it's bad either. I think it's reasonable to say that Judah definitely influenced and possibly made a lot of, if not all the decisions for this game, because losing your GM the night before the Paper Cup is kind of hard. Not the best thing you want to do.
For sure. So let's go ahead and get into the Phillies lineup now. So in the leadoff spot for them, playing left field, was Cambodia, one of the league's favorite Reddit onlys. Kyle Mack was batting second, playing second base. Conrad Love, we touched on him earlier, out in center field in the 3-hole. Hunter Tuzero, MLR veteran, just recently retired, out in right field, batting fourth. Cy Had, no DH for these Phillies. They will put Had in the 5 spot for them, batting fifth. Ross Fire, playing shortstop, batting sixth. Miguel Snow, current Philly at third base batting 7th. Casey Batts, another current Philly, catching batting 8th. And Lefty Schweez at first base batting 9th. And of course, I had on the mound in this one, entering with a 3-0 record to start his MLR career with the Phillies. Yeah, let's go and look at that Phillies bench too. We're not going to talk about these guys much. But one notable guy I think we should mention on here for sure is Oliver Yu, pitcher for the Phillies. Didn't have a great season 1, of course, struggled a little bit throughout his career, but he's still here. He's still a Philly to this day in season 5. Got the opening day start this year for that team. Yeah, Jay, talk about Oliver Yu a little bit and what he's meant to your team.
Well, I'd like to point out that Bay has considered him the ace of the team. He's described him as that. Oliver Yu has always been like a really cool dude. I haven't talked to him much recently, but he's still around. He's probably still talking in the locker room itself. But like we used to always like play games. We used to play Fortnite together back when I actually played Fortnite. He's just a really, really nice dude. We actually had a Rocket League team together for like the 5 seconds where we had like a Rocket League thing going on in like around the league. Yeah, and he had a really good season 2, at least to start. I remember he had a very good start to season 2. Yeah, he just always has been a very good inning eater at worst, and at best you could expect some surprisingly awesome starts from him.
For sure. Just to list off some other guys from the Phillies bench, Gil Metz was on the bench for this game. He, of course, still in the MLR today.
Is Jay dead?
Yeah, Metz.
Am I dead?
What'd you say?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Hear me?
I guess you can't hear us.
I can hear you. Hello? I'm here.
Okay, I can't hear anyone.
Uh-oh, that's not good. Mute. Hello?
Let's see if he's going to disconnect and reconnect. Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, it sometimes happens.
Well, that's going to be a fun thing in the podcast to listen to. Great. All right, so keeping on, relisting some of these Phillies bench guys. So yeah, Gil Metz, like I said, 5-year MLR veteran, been on so many teams. I believe the Phillies, Devil Rays, Indians. He has some time with the Brewers, currently on the A's.
With the Brewers.
Very ironic.
Yep.
But, yeah.
So yeah, Metz has been all around the league. Then you got Connor McGregor, former Devil Ray, has some time in the Indians as well. Also here on this Phillies bench, Brandon Aconi will start season 2 as a St. Louis Cardinal. Also make his way to the Indians. Yeah, Indians love picking up players. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Aconi didn't really see much action in season 1, but he's here on the Phillies bench. You got one of my favorite names, Obi-Wan Cannoli. Season 1 only guy here on the Phillies bench. And then you have Wei Chen Rodriguez, who I don't believe ever played a game for the Phillies. Is that right, Jay?
Yeah, I think I remember him. I just barely. I think he played. Didn't he play once?
I have no plate appearances from him on my sheet.
I guess not then. Fuck. I'd like to say that the Athletics have become something of a Phillies, an r/Phillies mod haven, because we have Max Wasson, who's in the lineup for the Athletics here, but we also have Gil Metz, who has gone over to there, and whoever Otter Hooligan is, like Oddie or Dottie Hooligan or something like that. She's on the Athletics, and she also is a Phillies, an r/Phillies mod. So it seems like that's kind of where they've coalesced.
Glad they're one big happy family nowadays. So yeah, yeah, let's go ahead and get into the game. I think it's game time. Admiral Jones, of course, known at the time as Osmosis Joe, now Artemis Jones, was on the call here as the umpire in this paper cup. So yeah, let's start it out. Top of the first, no outs. Syhad takes to the mound to face off against Graham Autry. Any comments y'all want to make on Autry? My note says that he, of course, was with the A's throughout season 1 and 2 up until the schism. He's one of course, many players on this roster to leave once MLN was founded, but he's been one of the few that's been with MLN ever since. He's still playing over there, taking at-bats to this day. Any thoughts y'all want to share on Graham?
I think I remember him being one of the guys who are like, who was like, I'm not a part of the like Athletics group. I don't know what they're doing over there. And then he went in the schism, which is kind of weird. But I remember him he was the first overall pick for them. I think he was up there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, batting.
I don't have much to add about him, but
yeah, batting .211 entering this game. And quickly here, Syhad would get a quick strikeout of Autry. So yeah, 1 out here, top of the first. Syhad picks up K number 1. That certainly would not be his last today. So yeah, that brings Art Z's to the plate. Again, one of the other players. Is Art Z still in MLN? I don't think he's still there. I believe he was in MLN
He's
for a
in
little
MLN
bit.
still. Well, I think the last time that he made a comment was like last year. No. He's still playing. He's still playing in the other place.
Got it. So yeah, he's over there. He'll draw a quick walk here, so that'll put a base runner on before Caleb Van Vactor heads to the plate, and he will fly out. That'll bring up Blue Moon Bartholomew. Now, he was one of the more active A's. Of course, the A's were not really active, so they were controversial and quiet throughout Season 1 and Season 2. But if there was any A that was really kind of a face of the league at the time, I would agree it was Bartholomew. Do y'all agree?
I would say Mick Boatface.
Oh, that's true.
He started the old PEA meme where like we would just accuse people of taking performance enhancing algorithms.
Oh, that was a fun time.
And we had a P emote. I don't think it's still there, but
so yeah, of course, 2 outs here in the top of the first. Bartholomew will also draw a walk, so that's now 2 walks allowed quickly here in the first 4 batters by Had. So in steps Brian Southwell. I want to stop and talk about Southwell for a moment. This is his MLR debut. As far as I know, he is the only player in MLR history to make their debut in the Paper Cup. Do y'all know of any others?
I know of no others, and I don't know how that was decided, but I mean.
And the funny thing is that Southwell was on the roster leading up to this game. Like it wasn't just like a quick Paper Cup signing at the end. No. Southwell was there. Like Southwell was just on the bench.
I don't think that's true. I think was. I think he was like a session 7 signing.
Oh, never mind then. So scratch what I just said. But nonetheless, he's going to step in here with, of course, a runner on first and second. So you got 2 men on, 2 outs. And Southwell, first ever clear at bat, first time up, is going to launch a single out into deep right field. Z's will come around from second and score. That single will move Bartholomew from first to third. Southwell will stand in at first. So yeah, A's quickly take a 1-0 lead here. Jay, do you remember what it was like seeing the rookie hit a RBI single to start out this game?
Well, like I said, I wasn't as emotionally attached, or I won't say that, but like I wasn't as like, if we lose this, I'm going to die. Sort of like I didn't have that mindset here, and so I was kind of comfortable with whatever the situation would be, and I kind of had my locker room at that sort of like temperature where it's like, this is kind of like a season that doesn't really matter because it's so short. It got basically shortened because of this announcement on r/baseball. So we were just like 1-0. It's okay. We know how to hit, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, Southwell, like I was surprised it was him. I mean, I would have preferred it to be him because there's a lot of guys on that team that I wasn't very much in love with, and that's one of the guys that I happened to not really be that caring about. So I was like, all right, cool.
So yeah, next batter up will be Max Wasson, who stands in with 2 outs and runners on the corners. Wasson, let's stop and talk about him too. He's still playing in the MLR today, 51 games into his career. Spent 49 of them with the A's, played mainly DH under Gymnast, and then when JP Panic took over halfway through season 2, shifted to the middle infield, and has pretty much been there all the way through the end of season 4 when he was traded over to the Diamondbacks to fulfill future considerations. Milo, what all about Wasson stands out to you?
Well, Wasson, when we talked about, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, put me on the spot all of a sudden. When we talked about season 1, how the A's were like, not good except for Van Beck. Wasson, he didn't have a lot season 1. Like putting him in the game was almost as much of a risk as putting in, as it was putting in their new guy who had never played before. Yeah, Southwell. And I don't know why I forgot his name. He's like the biggest player in this game. But he had 7 plate appearances and had 1 hit, and it was a single. and he struggled. But the problem was the A's had meh second baseman, and that was as good as they could do. Actually, they had Nacho, I think, who he hit singles as well. But yeah, Max Watson, he was in the league for a while. He still is in the league.
Yeah.
So of course he's still been in the league a while.
Still going.
But yeah, I don't know. Anyone who is from that first season that's still around, I feel like I'm very close to, even though some of them I haven't talked to since season 1. So any of these games, I'm just getting giddy talking about all these names I know are still around. So
yeah, Watson is the only. Just to clarify, Watson is the only member of this Oakland A's team in any capacity that is currently in the league still. Phillies, of course, have I believe 4 players still in the league from their team, but yeah, A's only have just this one and Max Watson. Yeah, cool to see him living up here. So yeah, he's gonna strike out. Picks up the K, and that ends the inning. So yeah, had 2 Ks, 2 walks, but also gives up a run. So A's are up 1-0 as we head to the Phillies' first side hitting as Sal Shark takes the mound to face Cambo Dia. Jay, how much faith do you genuinely have in Reddit onlys? Just genuinely.
I love this fucking kid. He was so nice. He was such a cool dude, and he would just always answer all my stuff with like smiley face emojis. And I just like really wanted him to go into our Discord. He never fucking did, but he always was super responsive on Reddit. And like this is, I'll let you say the result first.
Yeah. So just to clarify a little bit about Dia, because I doubt we're going to talk much more about him this game. 10 career starts, most of which were for the Phillies. Did get traded to San Francisco early in season 2, got a couple of starts there, but not really much noise out of Dia with the Giants. And end of season 2 was pretty much the end of his career. Nonetheless, he steps in here against Shark. First pitch, bang, out to deep left field. That one is gone. A solo home run to lead off the bottom of the first for Cambodia, and quickly this game is knotted up at 1 for the Phillies. So Jay, what were you going to say?
I think this guy has 3 or 4 first inning home runs when he's starting leadoff, or like starting in the first 3. I think I always started him leadoff because I think his first game he hit a home run with his first swing. So this was not like, this is something that he did in the past that he would do again later. So like this is something that it's like, oh cool, perfect. My strategy worked out perfectly. The guy who hits leadoff home runs just hit a leadoff home run. So I was feeling pretty good about it there. I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, no outs as Kyle Mack stands in here. We've talked a little bit about him. Of course, he's a Phillies veteran, retired pretty much at the time of the MLN split. Wasn't for MLN, but nonetheless, that's when he kind of ghosted the Phillies. He grounded out here for the first out. In comes Conrad Love. Again, lifer for the Phillies for his career, but would retire at the end of season 2. He was a ghost, right, Jay? He just kind of fell off the face of the earth.
Love, no. Mac, yes.
Okay.
Mac's he was active on the Discord, very nice dude. His last message with us was something about chicken. I forget entirely what it was about. It was something about chicken. And then he just didn't talk ever. And we would just like, we would see him online and we would ping him like, yeah, what's up, dude? Why aren't you talking? Why aren't you saying anything? And he just would not fucking answer. No matter what we did, we'd be like, I mean, like, we're not angry. Like, if you want to leave, you can just leave. We just we'll just like take you off the roster. But like, can you say something? Like, don't just like say nothing. He would just not speak. We would see him up until like, I think we still have him in our Discord server. We would still see him just like online playing Minecraft. And it's just like, it was so infuriating because he could have just been like, yeah, I'm sorry guys, I'll leave, and we would have all been like, oh, that's no problem, like have a fun, like have a good time with the rest of your life, I guess. But like he just would not answer us. I would DM him like, yeah, I mean, like, if you want to leave, it's fine, just say something. And he just never talked again. The thing about chicken was his last thing. But oh yeah, Conrad Love, he was just busy a lot at the very end, but like whenever he came in, he was always just like really nice, especially to me. Like he like, I think he called me dad a lot. Like he was just such a cool dude. And like I kept him on probably longer than I should have when it comes to like, because like in season 2 especially, it was very much about like, you got to be active in my clubhouse or I'm going to trade you. That was like kind of my thing. But like Conrad Love, he wasn't very active in my clubhouse. He always batted. He probably would have continued to bat even like if I didn't release him like into season 3, but he was just cool, and I kind of like let him go on after the season, because I mean I couldn't keep the spot, but I let him go for the remainder of the season for season 2.
Yeah, so Love with one out here is going to whack a stand-up double out to deep center field. That'll put him at second base with one out. In comes Hunter Tuzero. I'm going to let Milo talk on this one first, but Jay, I'm sure you're going to have some words about Tuzero.
Fuck this guy.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Oh, so I don't understand the hate you have between 2-0 because it seems super friendly. But 2-0, so in this game, right? 2-0 in. I got to actually.
Oh, Tuzero's retired. So Tuzero just retired at the end of
he's
season
retired
4.
Now. But he like, so when he was in Philly, I just remember him being like not very good at all, right? And he was actually
okay.
pretty
He
good.
294 in season 1. So,
but like he played well. He didn't do well in this paper cup, and I don't really. The Jay can probably expand on this. I don't really know why Jay hated him, but it was like everywhere he went, he'd hit 100, and every time he played the Phillies, he'd go 2 for 2 with a double and a home run. Like it was insane how much he like had this sort of spite for Jay just to make sure he'd play well against him.
In season 1, he was a pretty good hitter. I remember he was one of the guys who hit a 0 difference home run against the Nationals in that 7th inning. He was one of the guys who really blew it open. He got a 0 diff. I didn't like him because he was very antagonistic to other people. He was kind of just like somebody I had to babysit because he would just like talk shit and like get himself into trouble, and then I'd have to go in and like patch things up. And then like there was a big like thing with like you wanting to go to Toronto, and like Mick kind of made it out to be something of drama, and I kind of like spilled it to my team. I just kind of like mentioned it in passing because I kind of like, because I feel like it's a bad thing, but at the same time I feel like everybody does it, where like they learn something and they go over to their team and be like, hey, I heard about this. So he ended up spilling that to like to Maine, like just directly at Mick, and then I had to like diffuse that. I just had to diffuse a lot of things with him, and he was just kind of like a problem in the clubhouse too. He was just kind of a little bit too antagonistic and kind of got me into trouble a lot, and that's kind of why I didn't like it.
So yeah, to kind of fill in the gap of what Jay was talking about, of course, in response to Tuzero kind of leaking the thing about Milo and Mick, Tuzero would go to San Francisco in a trade, play there pretty much through the end of season 3, in which he'd signed as a free agent with the White Sox, the expansion franchise, season 4, and then finish up the career there. So yeah, this at bat, not much here. He'll ground out. That'll move the run to the third. And then here comes Cy Had. Yeah, pitchers batting, pitchers who rake. I guess so. But not much of raking will happen in this at bat as he'll fly out against Shark to end the inning. So yeah, tie game here. In the first. Let's go ahead and go to the second now. No outs. Had back on the mound against Kid Notcher. This is a guy I want to talk about for sure. Milo, I feel like you can probably chime in here. Notcher had a good career, really good hitter, big singles hitter, hit over 300 in season 1. Season 2 was an all-star. Wouldn't retire until season 3, session 8, after a 27-game career with both the A's and the Diamondbacks. Yeah, do you want to chime in anything on Notcher, Milo?
I don't have too much on Notcher. Notcher was a contact hitter. He hit only singles his entire first season. He did play very well in season 2. And I remember he was still in Oakland season 2, right? I believe he was Oakland season 2.
He went to Arizona at the start of season 3. Actually, no, the middle and near the end of season 2. He was the player to be named later in the deal that sent Moritz Stiefel to the A's.
That was so sad. Can I talk about that a little bit?
Yes,
because like Panic had like he was faced with a very hard like all the fucking roster left, and he had to like pick up the pieces and make something out of it. And like one of the things was to do a player to be named later trade until he could get himself worked, like his roster worked out. And so this whole thing about Kid Notcher being the player to be named later was actually like really tragic, because Kid Notcher really wanted to stay on the Athletics, and it was like a big thing where it's like, oh, like I'm gonna be leaving in like 2 sessions, but I really want to stay here and see what happens, and I'm playing really well for the Athletics, so like he was pretty sad about that. We were all pretty sad about that. We were like, oh man, Kid Notcher, like the poster boy for the Athletics season 2 is leaving because he's this player to be named later and he has to go. And I could probably dig it up later for people who are listening to this. His last at bat, I remember it being like an emotional write up for the Athletics where like everybody cheered for him, and it was just like kind of like weirdly emotional that like he had to leave the Athletics because he was a player to be named later and like the deadline was coming up. So that's what I have to say about Kid Notcher.
Yes.
Great. So Notcher, yeah. Do you have anything to add, Milo?
I don't have a whole lot to add about Notcher. I just wanted to mention like this is going into the future. I know, but Notcher was part of. Yeah, I remember season 2 because of obviously my brother being in the competition for the second baseman all-star, and there was like 5 different second basemen hitting 400, and Notcher was like either second or first amongst them, and so he had to win out for being the all-star in the American League, and he didn't. I don't think Notcher even made the all-star game, but he hit like 450.
Notcher wasn't all
season 2. Was he?
Yep. That's what I have.
Really? Oh. I don't know. I'm looking at this now. I don't find him. I'm looking at the All-Star game.
Oh, was he not?
Season 2, I don't see him on here.
Well, never mind. Scratch that.
Yeah, I don't think he was either.
But I mean, like, that's one of the ones he literally could have taken over for. I think there is one super weak spot in the AL that's like any one of these people would belong in this game. But yeah, Notcher didn't make it. Graham made it on like the last vote, and he was like he had a double streak of like 10 games, I think, something like that.
Who was the starter?
The starter, I think it was JDDLR.
Oh, yep, that makes sense.
Because that was like he was really campaigned for, which I mean,
deservedly
deserved.
He was a Devil Rays, so
yeah,
there's a lot of popularity around there.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, quickly here, Notcher grounds out to start the second. In comes Bodie McBoatface. Not going to talk a whole lot about McBoatface. He was probably like y'all said, one of the more active Discord players. Most famous for in season 2 actually deleting his Reddit account to play as the only, to what I know, maybe Ryan Gastings, I guess you could count as this, but only Discord-only player that I've ever heard of was submitting all of the swings through Discord.
This guy, I remember he was very antagonistic towards me. He kept asking me if he could change his name to like something McJaybird sucks or something that. And I just kept having to say like, no, I'm good.
Yep. So yeah, McBoatface actually gets on base here with a single. Then in comes Bobson Dugnut, one of my favorite names in the MLR. Again, one of those guys that left just like McBoatface at the end of season, or the midway point of season 2 when the MLN schism happened. Dugnut will ground into a 6-4-3 double play. So it's 2 outs here in the inning. Excuse me, that is 3 outs. Sorry, yeah, because McBoatface got on after the out. So that'd be a 6-4-3. What'd you say?
If you go through the actual game thread, this is before there was like, here's the pitch, here's the swing, here's the result. Like this is Wild West of MLR when everything just was however you felt like. And so like which big shout out to Admiral because he was like pretty straightforward with this was the pitch and then like what happened.
He was actually the guy who pioneered like the idea of like doing whatever the fuck you want because he liked the idea of people having different styles.
Yes. And it was like he was always consistent with his, hey, here's the pitch and here's the result at the end. And some people would just be like, here's the pitch, it was a single, and not tell you what was going on and how many people were on what base. And
yeah, it was insane.
So yeah, Dugnut grounds into a double play here to end in the frame. Go to the bottom of the second. Ross Fire, MLR journeyman, played on I believe 5 different teams, if I got that number correctly. I have 42 career games played between the Phillies, Rangers, Brewers, Indians, and Reds. Jay, thoughts on Ross? I know you talked a little bit about Ross Fire earlier. Just any quick rapid fire thoughts you have?
Oh man, Ross Fire. I regret a lot of things in my GM time. One of the big things was trading Ross Fire for the first overall pick. That ended up turning into Hudson Quinn. But like I traded him for a pick and like he just like I felt so bad to have him gone from my team, and like throughout the next few seasons I kept like trying to like coax him back onto my team, like either through free agency or like through trades. He's like one of those guys that were just like moderately active, always nice, and like he hit like a motherfucker. He was so good at it. But I just like I ended up trading him at one point, and I probably could have kept him for at least a few more seasons.
I have one thing to say about Ross Fire because I actually knew him before fake baseball. Most of the things with Reddit, I don't know anyone, but he was big in the NFL sub and still is. And he was the person, he was like famous there because he predicted the Texans trading Brock Osweiler like
Oh wow.
6 months before it happened. And it's like the biggest, I don't know. I remember when that happened, I was like, wait, this guy, oh my gosh, he did it. And I remember umping him one game. I just referenced a ton of things with the Browns and Texans that game just because he was in that game. It felt like a pseudo celebrity meetup, but no. But that's the only thing I have to say about Ross Fire. He was a good player.
So on top of this, yeah, Fire will hit a leadoff double, so that's a man on second with no outs. I'm gonna group the next two guys together. Not much. Well, I guess we can kind of sum up Miguel Sano and Casey Batts, 7 and 8 hitters, by saying they're still around. They're still active. Batts, of course, probably a little bit more active than MLN than MLR, but both guys very active players still in the league today. Jay, what do you have to say about guys still playing today?
Well, I call Casey Batts Green Jeff now because there's like I'm still very, very active in the Phillies clubhouse. Not in their locker room, but in their general chats and stuff. And like we have a thing where like half or like even more than that of our people are named Jeff. And so we call them based on their colors, the colors of their usernames. So we have Green Jeff, who is Casey Batts, and we have Brown Jeff, who is Connor Sexton, and Pink or Red Jeff is Jeff Dinger Hitter, but I call him Pink Jeff because his color is a little bit more pink, so I like to make fun of him. I mean, like Gray Jeff is Heinrich, who's actually a Rocky now, and Gold Jeff is Phil Coulson. But basically he's if he isn't active in Maine, he very much is active there, and he's always been like he's just such a bizarre character. He always has that like default profile picture, and we always make fun of him for that. But like, it's his entire like goal in life is to make sure he never does a profile picture. And like one time he was like, "Should I do a profile picture?" And we were like, "Never fucking say that again. Don't scare us like that." But like he's always been a character, and he's always hit pretty freaking good. So, and I remember like in the beginning of the season, he was one of the only guys because at the very beginning when we started, we had 3 distinctions between people, kind of based off of like the trade deadline game, which was kind of the inspiration for this, which is player, of course, GM, but also journalist. Journalist was going to be a thing that was entirely like separate from all of these to kind of like facilitate like Twitter shit and whatever, and like to do news, but they weren't going to be like a player or a GM, and he was the first person to kind of choose that. But like after the draft, we decided to get rid of that, and like he joined as a player, so he was there from the beginning, but he kind of draft dodged, and he ended up signing in the season in session 2. I remember he hit a double in that game, but we still lost. But like he always was a very good hitter through season 1, season 2, and like and beyond. And he's the only catcher I think today, so like he definitely has like
Dinger
a monopoly.
Hitter's a catcher, but yeah.
I mean, like primary catcher.
Oh, okay, yeah. Milo, do you want to add any thoughts on Snow while we're at it?
So I am a huge fan of Snow. He's in the Twins sub. I mean, when the Twins are playing, but he's always been. There's like an ideal type of player for me. This is gonna sound like really like I don't know quite the good word, but whatever. I don't mean it in like a really
he fucking sucked.
Sense, but but like he is never super active, never super crazy, but he's like active enough, right? And so like there are people that during a draft, it's like I'm here all the time, and they leave like 2 months later. And then there's people that are like make a few comments, that's it. Make a few comments, that's it for a week. And like he's always one to like hey, here's me for a little bit. Don't forget about me. But that's it. He's not just talking constantly all the time, which I think is really, I respect that a lot because I think of myself like that. I'm not always in the Discord 24/7, but I'm there every once in a while, and that's all I need to be.
I would like to specify that when I said he fucking sucked, I meant I kind of had my mind was kind of like preoccupied with a link that I put in the Discord we're talking with, but I meant his stats for season 1 because he never got
they
a
were
single
bad.
hit.
He never got a
One,
single
he was
hit. Yep.
garbage, but it didn't matter because he was active, and activity is important, even though it doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, I love
But
Mogi.
he walked one time and he scored that time in the regular season. So I want to give respect to efficiency because every time he got on, I don't know,
Yeah.
count somewhere.
Something in the water in Philly. So yeah, Snow and Bats fly it out and ground it out respectively. So yeah, Fire still on second base with 2 outs here in the second as Lefty Schweez comes up. This is the last player we need to talk about in this game, and I'm going to kind of sum him up. Jay, if you want to add anything here, you can, but it's kind of interesting storyline with Schweez because this kind of gets into Jay's season 2 transactions a bit. So Schweez started out in Philly, has only 8 career starts throughout his career, split between the Phillies and the Boston Red Sox, but retired at the end of season 2. Yeah, there was a transaction that we're not really sure of, but we believe it was for a minor league slot that would end up sending Schweez to the Red Sox early in season 2. Red Sox would kind of put him on their pine for most of the season until late in the game when Schweez got some starts as the Red Sox hunted towards a run at the Paper Cup and ended up making the playoffs. So yeah, me being on that Boston team, I got to work with Schweez a bit, and he just kind of came out of nowhere. Like he used to be this Reddit only guy, and then out of nowhere he just starts swinging and chatting in Discord, and yeah, just kind of came out of a shell. Do you have any thoughts on Schweez, Jay?
I always undervalued him. Like even season 1 where I had a few Reddit onlys, I always undervalued him. And I kind of, I mean, I started him every once in a while, but I kind of feel bad about that. That I kind of kept him on the bench more than not. He always was considered like a backup player to me. So I was kind of glad to get him to a team that used him a little bit by the end there.
So
I mean, I guess I started him in the Paper Cup, so
yeah,
it's not too bad.
definitely. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about Schweez when we get on to the season 2 Red Sox in a couple episodes and some of the big games that they played in. But right here, he's going to make an immediate impact and slap a double out to deep right field. Fire's going to come around and score. Schweez slides in, and the Phillies are going to take a 2-1 lead. Jay, it looks like Milo, I'll ask you this question. Milo, what does it mean for a GM? Because you've been a GM before, to see some of your underrated guys producing in a big way like this.
I would love to respond to that, but in my entirety of being a GM, I maybe 1 or 2 times from some of the unknown guys got some really, so I don't know if I can really respond when it does happen. I will say the first few games we played, we had some major hits from Phoenix Wright last year.
Oh yeah,
and those home runs, I was so excited. Like every time we went up to the plate, like the entire Discord, oh shit, here's another dinger. Oh, it's coming down. And like after a while, obviously the Blue Jays offense just disappeared. But when we were like rolling and we were feeling good, it was so amazing just to see, oh yeah, we got, I don't know if he's gonna be good. When you get the parts of your lineup, not from the GM perspective, but from the player perspective, season 2 was really great. We had a lot of parts of our lineup that, is okay players. But when your players that aren't contributing start to, it just feels really, really.
for sure.
It makes you feel like a GM mastermind, that you got this like little diamond in the rough, and he got you some runs, and you're like, hey, I'm very good. This isn't just luck. I did this.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna kind of fly through some more stuff here. So of course, Swee's the RBI double, so Philly's up 2-1 now, which goes back to the top of the order with Cam Bodea, who draws a walk. So 2 men on, 2 outs, and Kyle Mack will ground out to end the inning. So I'm going to kind of fly through the next couple innings if y'all don't mind, because not much happens until the 5th. So yeah, just going to give you a quick rundown of third. So yeah, all 3 ground out Z's fly out Van Vactor strikeout. So after the top of the third, Had's got 3 Ks after a 1-2-3 inning. Bottom of the third, same deal. Love flies out. 2-0 pops out, and Cy Had strikes out at the hand of Shark. That's Shark's first K of the day in the third. So yeah, halfway through this one, Phillies are up 2-1 as we move into the 4th. Lumen Barthelemy strikes out. Southwell up to the plate now with 1 out. He's going to hit another single. So 2 for 2 now in his debut appearance. Jay, do you remember, like, was there any kind of commentary at all about Southwell? Like, 2 for 2 in his first ever game in the MLR in the biggest game possible for his career?
Yeah, it was fucking annoying. Everybody was talking about this kid, and it was like, I'm winning! Shut up! It's my guys who are winning. But yeah, he kept being talked about, and I was like, at that point, I was getting a little bit like, grumble. I stop. Like, it can't have an Oakland player be at the top of the conversation chain right now.
Milo, have we seen a debut like this before in any fashion? Do you know?
Oh god, not off the top of my head. I can't think of any time. A 3 for 3 debut, I'm sure has happened before, but I really can't think of it. Like, there's probably some 3 for 3 debuts in like game 1 of the season, but to go 3 for 3 in the Paper Cup as your first game is like, that's unprecedented. That will not happen. Well, I mean, starting your first game in the Paper Cup will never happen again.
Right.
Right? Like, we should straighten that out. That will never happen, ever, because no team is going to go 20 games into a season and be like, this guy off the street sounds pretty good. Here's some catcher's gear. Go for it. Like, no one is going to do that again. And so to have the one person, maybe they should do it again, honestly. So far, if your debut game is in the Paper Cup, you're batting 1,000. So maybe this is a strategy that GM's got to pick up on.
If I get a GM ship again, I'm doing that now, just to spite you.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, it's gonna happen, and then he's gonna get like 500 diff 20. It's gonna be amazing.
It'll be your last like revenge.
Yes, I'll feel like I'll be dying in my 30s. I'm like, haha, I told you, Jay. Diabetic comatose.
1 out here in the top of the 4th inning with Southwell on first. Max Wasson flies out. Kid Notcher will draw a walk, which will put 2 men on with 2 outs before McBoatface ground out. That's a common theme in this game. McBoatface grounds out. That is 3 outs in the inning. So yeah, bottom of the 4th now. Another 1-2-3 between Fires fly out and then Snow and Bats each K up. So 3 Ks on the day for Sal Shark thus far. As we head to the 5th now, still a Phillies 2-1 lead here as Cy Howard comes to the plate. Strikes out Pops and Doug Nutt. Graham Autry flies out, and then Art D strikes out. That's now 6 Ks on the day as we head to the bottom of the 5th inning. Jay, you got to feel pretty confident at this point, right?
Yeah, I should have. I don't know if I was, but I probably was. It's been a good performance for Had so far.
So bottom of the 5th inning here, Shark comes back to the mound. Schweese flies out, Dia flies out, and here's where things get a little interesting. Kyle Mack to the plate. We've talked about his big homers he's had in his career, and he's about to hit another one here as he skies this one out to deep left center field, and it is gone. A solo home run for Kyle Mack, and the Phillies are up 3-0. Milo, from a fan's perspective in this game, was it pretty much over from the reaction? There's everybody pretty much like, all right, this is the Phillies got this. Congrats, Phillies. Let's just get on with the sticky.
Yeah, I mean, from the fans' perspective at this point, like, Had was rolling, right? Like, he was just destroying this game, and the A's weren't. I mean, they couldn't get anything going. The first inning, they were great, but one thing that really makes this moment special that Jay kind of mentioned. I'm going to steal your thunder, Jay. Sorry. Just checking out the swing. It's a 7:38 swing to take the insurance run lead, right?
Was it?
Wait,
was it a 7:38?
Yeah, this was a 7:38. I think the pitch was 7. I have it like right here. I think it's 7:43. And yeah, Casey hits the 7:38 5 diff home run to take the 2-run lead, which seemed just an insurance run, but in the end proved pretty important. But yeah, that in itself like makes this so great. Like, looking back on it, like, that was one of the biggest moments of any of the cups so far, was taking that 2-run lead. Because I mean, that seemed like it was over for many people, and it ended up that was one of the biggest plays of the game, regardless.
Can I also give a fun MLR factoid?
Go for it.
That Kyle Mack was the first ever player to steal a base. It was against the Detroit Tigers, and he ended up winning the game for us, like with a walk-off as the run scored because he stole that base. Just a fun little factoid. Yeah.
Kyle Mack will forever live in MLR history, to say the least. So yeah, solo homer here. Phillies up 3-1. Conrad Love will fly out, and that'll end the inning. Yeah, Sal Shark. Obviously this is a spoiler because we already know how this one ends if you've not been living under a rock. But Sharks Day.
If you're still catching up on season 1 of MLR, you got
Yeah.
a lot of work to do.
Yeah, 5 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. I mean, not a terrible performance. Obviously not his best, but like it seems like Shark wasn't really at fault here, right? Are we willing to say that?
It seems like that, but honestly, this is like the probably second worst game of Shark's season, which speaks not so much to it's his fault, but speaks way more to this team like lived and died by Sal Shark.
That's
like
true.
he decided whether the A's won or not based on if he gave up like 2 runs. Because if he gave up more than 2, like the A's weren't going to win. So he like put them in this situation, and 2 home runs. I don't think he gave up more than 1 on any other team that season. So it was crazy just to see that from Shark, who was amazing the rest of the year.
For sure. So yeah, top of the 6th inning here. Yeah, Jay's got to be feeling good as his Phillies are up by 2 runs. Just got to get 3 quick outs, and this one is over. Unfortunately, that is not what would happen here. Caleb Van Vactor, AL MVP, would prove why he is that here as he hits a double out to left field, puts him on board, and then Blumen Barthelemy follows that with a single of his own. So yeah, 2 men on. You've got runners on first and third here with no outs, and Cyhad is about to face his kryptonite in this game, Brian Southwell. Jay, do you remember what the dugout was like at this point, like before the result happened? Like, Southwell's up for at-bat number 3 here. Like, was there, like, clamor? It's just like, oh no. Or was it like, we got this, triple play?
Hold on. Did you guys see, like, hold up, is this Southwell?
This is when you burped Cyhad. Like, you were thinking about, oh, he's gonna take.
I was just reading,
and then you just like come out and say like, yeah, he just goes out to the mound and says like, everything will be okay. And he just burps into the mound.
Holy shit! I forgot about that. Sorry, I just rediscovered that, and then Admiral Jones responds, "This is disturbing." The dugout. Fuck. We probably were still confident. Like I said before, I was in a weird state of like ambivalence towards anything that happened. So I was like, if we lose, then we're hungry for season 2. If we win, then fuck yeah, we're champions. So I was in a point where I was just like, let's just get this done. Let's just do what we do best. And I think we were all still pretty calm.
So yeah, we all know what happens here. Southwell lines it up the first baseline. Van Vactor will score, and that is an RBI single. The lead is cut to 1. 3-2 now. Barthelemy on second, Southwell on first. Jay, how much are you sweating at this point, right?
I believe in my man's Cyhad, and I believed in him up until the very last pitch. But now as a pitcher myself, as Mr. Cyhad Jr., I now think of like what this would be like to be in this position as a pitcher, because I currently really suck as a pitcher. So I'm used to giving up runs, but like to give up like runs at the very end of this game that you fought so hard to pitch, it's like it's just such a shitty feeling to be like in this place. Probably I can't like even imagine. So like I was pretty okay. I was always okay with my pitchers, and like I left him in, so obviously like I knew like I had confidence in him to finish it out. But I would probably be really sad if I were like Cyhad, but like thankfully, I mean we'll see what happens, I guess.
All right, so yeah, Wasson flies out here in the next at bat. So 1 out now. Men on first and second. Kid Notcher. All he did was hit singles, and he'll do it again here. Single up the first baseline, and that will load the bases. Barthelemy on third, Southwell on second, Notcher on first. In comes Bodie McBoatface with his .222 batting average. Milo, what was the fan response here? You've got the A's with bases loaded, 1 out. Like, what was game discussion like doing backflips at this point? Like, what is happening in the Discord server?
Well, I mean, game discussion during the last inning. I mean, every paper cup during the last inning, you're gonna have like 50 comments every minute, at least, probably like 100, 200, because people are just like constantly. It's like you guys see like YouTubers stream. They'll put a video up of, oh, we beat this level live on Twitch, and like no one's making comments, and then all of a sudden they beat it, and like a million people are commenting, right? And it's like, oh, first try and all this stuff. That's basically what it was. Like everyone was just like constantly going for the entire length of the last inning. And it's also neat too. Like you really only get it in big games like this, but guaranteed when it's big moments like this, everyone is on. Like sometimes, oh, if it's a playoff game that's first round, like top of the sixth, you're trying to come back, and then you wait for like 2 hours for a response, or you wait for like super long. And like in this scenario, I keep saying like, I'm sorry, I should improve that. But like in this, oh damn it, in this scenario, you have this entire inning happen in 2 hours maybe, and everyone is just on the edge of their seat waiting to see what's happening. So it's really unique. Those moments when everyone is responding, everyone's in main, those are some of the greatest times that this game gives us.
Yeah,
Also, Pi was shouting really loud in the crowd. I remember he was there.
yeah, he was. Yeah, it's usually these games and like no hitters that like sort of produce that sort of response.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so here we go. 1 out. McBoatface to the plate here. Wait, let me find my notes. Yeah, here. McBoatface to the plate with 1 out. Sat on the mound. Bases loaded. I have the results printed on my sheet here. I literally printed out exactly what Jones typed out here. It's a lot. I'm going to read it all. Here's what it is. McBoatface knows that Hat is going low. He spits on a first pitch curveball in the dirt. He has no reason to swing at the first pitch. The second pitch is a changeup, but McBoatface predicts this one correctly as well. He lays off, but the pitch just barely catches the bottom of the zone. Strike 1. The count is 1-1, and Had looks to Casey Batts for the next sign. He nods at the first one and throws. It's a slider away, and McBoatface again doesn't swing. 2-1 count. The Phillies crowd is eerily silent. The familiar feeling of dread is set in with full force. They can't seem to shake it. The feeling worsens. Had's fourth pitch is a fastball inside. Ball 3. The hitter has a count now, 3-1, and the green light is simply all his. But McBoatface has gotten this far without swinging. Why start now? Had pumps the fastball down the middle, but the hitter was taking all the way, and so now the count is full. 5 pitches in, McBoatface is yet to lift the bat from his shoulders. He knows that Had needs the ground on the ball or the strikeout, but also knows that a walk isn't an option. He has to throw a strike to the lower half. He's ready for it. McBoatface sees the pitch out of Had's hand, a fastball, but he knows that Had can't afford to give him that heat right now, with the game potentially on the line. He's too predictable. It's a changeup. McBoatface sits on the change and hacks low, but Had has thought a step further than the hitter and thrown a legitimate four-seam fastball to the numbers. McBoatface swing is too low, however he makes contact solidly, and the runners take off. At least 1 run. Bartholomew obviously coming in to score off the line drive, it seems. Bartholomew crosses the plate, thumping his chest in celebration, but confused as to why the Philadelphia fans are suddenly cheering. Don't they know their team just lost the lead? Bartholomew turns to see where the ball went. The line drive was scorched straight to center off the bat, so why is Conrad Love not moving? His teammates are arriving at their new bases as he notices where the ball is. Inside Had's glove. The line drive was marked return to center, a ball addressed to center field but not properly stamped and intercepted by the post office. Had is staring at his glove, unbelieving that he caught it, before suddenly realizing what he's doing and tossing the ball to Lefty Schwees covering first base. An F1-3 double play. Cue the journey. The Phillies are your Season 1 Paper Cup champions. Jay, do you get chills hearing that?
F1-3 in the chat.
That's my dad, dude. Had. That's my dad. And it was good that it was off of Bodie McBoatface because I didn't like that guy at all. He was kind of a prick. But yeah, I always think of that scene. It's not really the same sort of scenario, but like I always think of that scene in the way that like Cliff Lee catches that like really high pop up in the postseason off, I think, the Yankees, where he just kind of like is like very deadpan, nonchalant, just kind of like takes it and just like looks like he doesn't want to be there. And I always think of like Cy Had like taking it very like nonchalantly, like expressionless, just being like, "Yep, all right, I got the ball, we win." So it's kind of, for some reason I always think of
Had, of course, Actually, no, Milo. Let me get this thought from you. What were the fans saying as the double play happened here?
So I was sitting with Graham in the stands, and both of us were just waiting there and just wonder. Like, we all saw what happened. We were just wondering why everyone was still sprinting. Like, everyone had their lead, but everyone was just like going around the bases. Like, why is this happening? But I mean, we were going crazy too because, like, I mean, Graham was going more crazy than I was because I was still upset that we lost. But like the whole stadium just erupted, right? Because I mean, this was at home. This is Philadelphia getting this home game, and oh, the ending of this game just gives you chills. And thinking back on it, like, yeah, if this is a single, like, this ties up the game. Everything just completely changes, and instead, it was immediately over. It's kind of somber to think in moments like this that I'm clearly making up as I speak.
that.
Like, like when you have all these things that could happen, and there's like, I keep saying, like, I'm so stupid. When you have so many moments that can happen and so many different outcomes of a situation, and you try to predict what'll happen, and then all of a sudden it's just instantly everything converges to one outcome before you can even think about it. Like, those moments are like really somber. It seems weird to hear them, and in this case, that's basically how everyone felt in the stadium. Everything that could have happened, a single, an error, or something that could, I guess errors can't happen because that's the thing. But everything that could happen just instantly converged to the Phillies just won.
Imagine if the A's won this. Like,
Yeah.
do you think that like the schism? I mean, I guess it would have happened regardless, but like a large chunk of like the schism's original people who went off to form the other league were athletics members. And if they were champions of this league, I think they would be a little bit more hesitant to leave it. I mean, I don't know for sure because personally, like, there's a lot of personal things there, but I feel like if they won this game, a lot of that spite would be overshadowed by the fact like they are the defending champions, and maybe we would have seen like a little bit of different drama in season 2, or no drama at all. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's pretty
Yeah.
50-50, right? Because you got guys like McBoatface. It's like, yeah, they're leaving. But a guy like Graham Autry, who was pretty on the fence, a guy like Bartholomew, who's been so active, like, these guys might be sticking around, don't you think, Milo?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things going into this game that, like, yeah, you could say these for sure will happen. If the Phillies win, then oh, the A's are definitely going to leave. But I can't definitively say like this is the reason why people left, or this was the pushing point as to why people could handle the league anymore, right? When it's weird saying that because that's odd to think about, but thinking about the implications of the end of this game, it just it's one of these games that, it does have that influence. Maybe the A's actually stay more as a team. Maybe the schism still happens, but the A's end up, not entirely leaving. Or the A's, I mean, they did stay as a team in MLR and needed some help to re-nourish their lineup, but it could be one of those cases where they are the defending. No one on the team is going to leave because that's who they are. And especially, I think it's added in more that Jay was commissioner season 1, right? And there was questions going into the game. I mean, you talk about the Nats who left because they felt, even though it was Ozzie Jones's idea, they felt like, oh, we were. I mean, I was a part of that. We felt like we were cut a little bit. And then you talk about the A's who were in this game and lost very closely. A lot of the teams that left kind of seem as though they left because they personally slighted, which isn't necessarily the case for everyone. And I won't go too much into that because I still don't know everything that went on. But it's interesting seeing how this influenced that as well.
Jay, how did it feel to get the last laugh against Judah?
Um, I I think it felt good, but like I didn't want to like hammer it in too much. I mean, I was the commissioner still at this point, and so I was just like my whole thing was like, all right, this is done. We have like 170 new people on standby. Let's get this draft done. So there was that moment of celebration, but there was also just like a big overlying idea of like this was only a 7 game season, so it's not real. So like I do think that my mind was immediately set to all right, season 2, let's get this thing on the road. We've all been waiting for about a month to get this show going, so let's get it going. So yeah, it was fun to win against the Athletics. Though kinda I didn't want to fan any more Flames here, so I probably would have been fine either way. And this probably caused me a few issues. The fact that we won against the Athletics and kind of continued that sort of that bad blood between us.
So Cy had Senior rather, of course, gets the win in this game. 6 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. But interesting enough, player of the game did not go to Had or Mac or Dia or Schweez or any of these guys that were big hitters for the Phillies. Player of the game goes to Brian Southwell, who went 3 for 3 and scored the only 2 runs for the Athletics. Milo, do you agree with this call, letting the player of the game in the paper cup go to the losing team?
Absolutely. I mean, when the second game I ever umped, I had the same thing where someone hit 3 home runs and they were on the losing team. So if you have someone that just absolutely dominates, they have to be, regardless of team, the best player on that team has to be the most valuable player or
Jay, how
player
did
of the
you
game,
feel
or
about it?
whatever.
It's just the story of my Phillies. It's just like we've always been the type of team that we kept winning, but like we were never in a place where you pointed to a player and you went, "This is one of the best players in the league," or like, "This player is amazing," or "This player did like the best job in this particular field or moment or game or season." And so like it's just it almost is like a usual thing that's like, oh well, the Phillies didn't get a player of the game in their own paper cup win because none of the players really stood out fantastically. That none of the players did like the best job in the game. So like the homerism part of me is like, fuck no, like fuck you, Southwell. It should be one of us. But I'm just like looking down the list of our players and I'm just like wondering who would even get that honor besides him. And I can't really come up with a definitive answer.
All right. Any final thoughts on the season 1 paper cup that we want to talk about?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. It's obviously a huge moment in history that I'm really glad we were able to go over because like season 1 is never talked about despite there being so much surrounding it. And it's good to sort of like revisit this stuff and all these players that haven't played in like 2 years. And so it's good to look over again.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Season one. I mean, I'm biased, but season two was like one of my favorite seasons ever. But season one had so many different things with it because there were so many. This was like fake baseball in its rawest form, right? Like we didn't have a million different batting types or pitcher types. This pick one of these three. Are you righty or left? Go swing. Like that was all it was. There was hardly a DH used. Um, and I mean, you get how many games nowadays get full? How many games nowadays can you go all 6 innings without a single sub? Like if we looked up this season, I would bet like maybe 2 or 3 total this year have been no sub games. And this entire paper cup, everyone just stayed in the whole game. Like, Jay, do you think if you were GMing like at the end of this game, would you have left Cy Had in this game when it was bases loaded? One.
It depends on what iteration of my teams you'd be talking about. I think like I'm trying to think in the mindset of like the team that I left with, and I think I would go with Embiid. I think I would bring in Embiid. At least like when I was GM, he was really good, and I feel like he would excel in this situation. And plus, like as you, my my roster at this point was like 15 players long at most, and now it's 20. So and if you're GMing a team at this point in the game's history, you're going to have 20 players almost guaranteed, or like at least like very close to that. Um, So yeah, I probably wouldn't. I probably would have taken out Cy Hat even if he hadn't given up. Like I probably would have taken him out before the 6th inning to get somebody else in there.
Yeah, definitely the game has evolved a lot. Oh, what were you gonna say, Milo?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say like it's so interesting looking back on this and seeing how different like it is still, we're just still guessing numbers on Reddit, but like how much this has changed since this first paper cup. There's consistency with all the responses or all this stuff. This was just witnessing all this happening was just really neat and watching all of it. There was everything going into it. There was a short season, there was tiebreak, and seeing the Phillies in the end, they came out on top. And like there's a lot of controversy Phillies getting into the playoffs, but clearly they were the best team because of that. So that it kind of, even though it may not have been for Philadelphia and maybe for Oakland, for most of the fans, it felt refreshing that should they have been in there? They won the paper cup. So yeah, I think it's fair to say they should be there.
Definitely. All right. Well, that about does it for this episode of Rewind. Yeah, Phillies, of course, win this game 3-2 and clinch the first ever paper cup. Next week on the show, we are going to hit up one more season 1 game that I think we should talk about. Season 1, session 2, Mets against Braves. Of course, not the current Mets. These Mets are now the Brewers, and these Braves are still the Braves after time as the Expos. But the legendary pitching matchup of Cal Tiberius Jr. against Pi cannot be untalked about. So we're going to hit that up next week before diving into season 2 and beyond. Jay, Milo, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Pleasure to be on.
All right, sounds good. We will see you all next week for the second edition of Rewind. I'm Kyle Corbett signing off. Have a good one.